Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So in this video we're going to talk about two things. One of them is that Rocket Lab could lose out on billions, and in order to not do that, did they start misrepresenting their capabilities to get contracts from the government? This was the latest accusation leveled at Rocket Lab, so I wanted to do some investigative journalism and find out what's going on, and this is what we're going to talk about. This is the second thing. The first thing is coming very soon. But before we begin, please make sure you're subscribed, and yeah, that's it. You can like, comment, whatever, you know, all the YouTube stuff. Let's begin. So the first thing that we found out today is that Raycon, so we don't know what Rocket Lab is buying from the $350 million. We know what they're not buying, and that is a New Zealand I don't know what they do. It's like antenna communications. They're into a lot of things. Company which was a prime suspect when this deal was announced that Rocket Lab would be buying them, and I am very, very happy. I was basically sure after the conference call that it would not be Raycon because it's in no way cheap, and they basically said on the conference call that they would be more into the payload and bus systems, you know, with you know, like cheaper offers. And yeah, this company just didn't fit it in any way. But now it's official, 100%. People can forget about this, and I'm very happy about this. I think it would have been a mistake to buy this company. So the next news is Rocket Lab is being accused. So Rocket Lab has misrepresented Neutron launch readiness, congressional memo says. So this article came out yesterday while I was sleeping, of course. And yeah, it's quite some accusations here. So I want to go into it and give you my opinion. It's going to be interesting. So an internal congressional memo viewed by TechCrunch casts a strong doubt on Rocket Lab's claim that its Neutron rocket will be ready for launch in time to meet a crucial contract deadline from the Space Force. So this was what was in the memo. In light of public reporting and media pressure, Rocket Lab has escalated their campaign to misrepresent their launch readiness in an effort to gain competitive advantage over incumbents and other new entrants by onboarding into the NSSL Phase 3 Lane 1 at the first opportunity in 2024. The memo viewed by TechCrunch says, public records and information available to staff confirm that Neutron has no credible path to launch by December 15, 2024. So a couple of thoughts here. I had to look up what the NSSL Phase 3 Lane 1 was. So NSSL stands for National Security Space Launch, and the phase simply refers for a time frame. So phase 2 was all the national security launches that they ordered between 2020 and 2024. And all of those contracts basically went to SpaceX and ULA, and SpaceX won most of the contracts, and ULA won the second most contracts. Now in phase 3, they innovated a little bit because they wanted newcomers to be able to bid on their programs. So they divided the launches. I don't know, it's not disclosed how many launches it's going to be, but let's say it's 80 launches. And they said, okay, lane 2 is for proven companies on proven, you know, super heavy rockets that can do very specific government requirements, and, you know, they're very high risk mission, so they can't really F around with those. Those have to be, you know, proven guys that they can rely on. But lane 1 is, you know, lower risk, less requirements mission where they can invite new companies like Rocket Lab, Firefly, you know, to spur up the industry. And these launches go from 2025, I think, to 2029, and it's multi-billions of dollars of launches, but it gets divided by, you know, into lane 1 and lane 2, and even in lane 1 and lane 2, it gets divided into different companies. But nevertheless, it would be a huge chunk of money for Rocket Lab. So such memos are used to inform congressional officials on particular issues and make recommendations on proposed action. This memo, which was written by congressional staffers and circulated on Wednesday to other officers, including those in the Senate Armed Services Committee states that Rocket Lab has repeatedly assured these staffers that the company has a credible path to launch by December 15th. So just want to say here that the wording credible path to launch by December 15th is a very, very non-tangible thing. And they had to bid for this program in December 2023. So if when you were bidding, you had a credible path to launch on December 15th, I don't know all the details, but you know, rocket programs are rocket programs. So let's say they decide that yes, you did have a credible path, but you are experiencing some sort of a delay and they will need to wait 2 more months. Does that violate, you know, what is it called? The request for proposal? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that it violates. It's their own rules. So I just want to give this as an extra viewpoint. That is the date by which the Space Force Space Systems Command said launch providers must be ready to fly in order to qualify for the launch contracts under a program called National Space Security Launch Phase 3. Those contracts will be reportedly be worth multiple billions of dollars to cover launches from 2025 through 2034. In response to industry feedback, Space Systems Command changed its procurement strategy for the next batch of national security launch contracts to accommodate newer launch providers. Under the new strategy, the contracts are split into 2 groups. Lane 1 for the newer rockets and Lane 2 is for the established providers that can fulfill the full range of mission requirements. While Rocket Lab has never publicly confirmed that it has bid under Lane 1, in an earnings call on Tuesday, CEO Peter Beck suggested that the company was pushing hard to complete Neutron development by the end of this year in order to meet that deadline. We're tracking that Lane 1 pretty closely, and we spent a lot of time with Space Force to advocate for that Lane 1, he said. So again, a little bit of clue. So he said that we spent a lot of time with Space Force to advocate for this. I'm highly confident that if you needed to have a credible path to launch, so again, they submitted it in December 2023, and if they did it together, I'm 100% that it must allow for delays. Okay, so that's my opinion. So hence the reason why we're pushing so hard to get the vehicle in a launch for this year, because it's getting on ramp to Lane 1. So this contract would be billions of dollars for Rocket Lab, and I understand why he's making his engineers sleep in the office to make sure that this is done. As Beck went on to note, providers who do not meet this year's readiness date will have another opportunity to bid on the contracts the following year. So they made it so friendly, this contract, that even if you completely miss the onboarding, you get a new chance every year. Neutron is Rocket Lab's medium lift vehicle that is being added as a complement to its successful small electron rocket. Neutron will be powered by a new engine called Archimedes, and the company is aiming to start hot fire tests of that engine around March. Beck said the company will know more about how close the timeline they are once the Archimedes breathes fire during testing. Uncertainties around Archimedes hot fire tests are the biggest issue in Rocket Lab's claims, the memo suggests. It's so interesting that this is debated in the Rocket Lab community, because I hear this from so many people that they're concerned about the Archimedes, like not having seen the rocket fire yet. And every interview that I hear with Peter Beck, he says that the rocket is the least innovative thing that they have done. And on top of it, they're not even going to use the rocket. Like, their logic is to have a very powerful rocket, but then use it on a very low thrust so that the rocket can be reused over and over again. And I don't feel any hesitation, any doubt when he talks about it, when Adam Spice talks about it. Yet there's a lot of experts in the field who are basically saying that there was one interview I saw on somebody's YouTube channel that from the engine test, it will take 4 years or something usually to, get onto a rocket, and it just doesn't make sense. So one of them has to be right, And one side is very wrong, and we will see which one, I guess. But I tend to go with Peter Beck. I do believe him on this. Beyond the actual rocket testing, much of the timeline depends on completions to the launch pad and other infrastructures at NASA Wallops Flight Facility, which is being built by the state agency Virginia Commercial Space Authority. The most recent request for proposal issued by the agency for the launch infrastructure has anticipated completion date of 29th of November 2024. So that's just 1 month before, that's just 2 weeks before the launch is supposed to happen, which leaves scant 2 weeks until the launch deadline. It is unclear whether any additional RFPs are forthcoming or when the RFP schedule was finalized. VCSFA did not respond to TechCrunch's request. On the company's earnings call, analysts also asked Peter Beck about the RFP, and he pointed out Rocket Lab's track record of developing launch pads in short timelines. But the congressional memo urges that Neutron pad has significantly different scale, propellant time, and architecture compared to the company's existing pads. It also highlights proprietary timelines shared by other launch providers that suggest there is much work left to be included in the RFPs by VCFA. So this was the article that started all, and here are my thoughts. So I think that we can, the timeline is very tight, like that's very, very clear, and the company is not hiding this fact on the earnings call if you listen. So first of all, Rocket Lab didn't put out any statements that we are going to get billions of dollars in contract. And how many companies do you know that would have done it? Think of Astra. Think of, FSD is going to be done this year. Peter Beck is the polar opposite. They had so many ways to pump the stock on this earnings call, and they didn't. And so instead of pumping the stock, they didn't even mention that, guys, if we manage to complete Neutron on time, we will get billions of dollars in launch contracts. So they have zero pressure from shareholders to get it done because they never announced it. And on the earnings call, they said, guys, this is a rocket program. We have an ambitious schedule. And right now, everything looks good. But if on the items, there is delays, then we will have to revise the timeline. So I don't know how to be more transparent about this. Okay. So now, why is this a big deal? And that is because you have the incumbents. So you have SpaceX, you have ULA, and you have Blue Origin, okay? And obviously these guys would like to get all the launches. And the US government has, I believe, a very healthy thought here that they want to really spur up the space industry, and they are concerned that there is not enough space providers in case, what hits the fan. So I just want to show you something here. So while there has been pressure from Capitol Hill to bring more entrants into the launch industry and widen the NSSL program, some congressional members are concerned about the readiness of companies that have placed a bid on Lane 1. Launch service providers bidding to participate in NSSL Phase 3 Lane 1, so the Lane 1 again is the newcomers, are misrepresenting their readiness to the Space Force, who may be incentivized to allow them to on-ramp to satisfy pressure from the committee, according to the internal congressional memo. The Space Command, which runs the NSSL program, declined to comment on this. Last year, Space Force officials said that if new companies can't handle launches in year one, the Pentagon can still rely on SpaceX and ULA or Blue Origin. So this is where the wind is blowing. So remember, the proposals had to be sent in December 2023, and the requirement at that time was to have a credible path by 2024, December 15. I truly believe that at that time, Rocket Lab had a credible path. Now it seems like the schedule is very, very tight. And these contracts will be awarded in the springtime based on the proposals that were sent back in December. So if you are a competitor to Rocket Lab, which you ought to, because here's the interesting thing. if they won't be able to fall in year one, we know that we have two solid providers in lane two that can bid in lane one. When they're able to execute and when they've got their commercial bid in place, we can on-ramp to the contract at that point. And I don't know what happened here now. It jumped. We jumped people. Anyways, so in this article, here it is. This is what I was looking for. Relativity Space, Firefly Aerospace, ABL Space System, three of the newcomers that Space Force has hoped to attract to lane one launches did not bid on the work, the company official said. So that means that Rocket Lab would be the only freaking competitor in lane one, which means that they would get all the contracts that are for 2024. Remember, the other companies can be onboarded later, but that would be so hugely beneficial for Rocket Lab. But they're eating the launch of ULA, SpaceX, and Blue Origin. And SpaceX, I think, is cool. Blue Origin has been known to lobby, use lawyers, and be very dirty. You remember that they tried to book Pad 39A from SpaceX in Florida. They tried to patent, landing on a drone ship when SpaceX was clearly working on this before. And it wasn't even SpaceX's idea. It was even tested before. And they started many different lawsuits. They sued the government when they didn't get the Moonlander program, and so on and so on. So this is where the wind is blowing from. Rocket Lab, I believe, is not misleading anybody. They have an ambitious plan. And yes, they might get the contracts. Maybe they don't. And if they don't get it this year, I'm 100% they will be ready next year. So this is a huge nothing burger. And I really hope that Peter Beck surprises us with this. It's coming in the spring or summertime this year. It would be so nice to get this. And maybe the contract could be written in a way that, yes, you did have a credible path to launch by December 15th. And maybe the schedule is tight. And if within 3 months you are unable to launch, then your contracts will be awarded to ULA or SpaceX or whatever. I think that would handle this deal. But we're going to see what happens. So thank you so much for watching. If you got value out of this, there's some links where you can support the channel. You know what to do with them. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.